Welcome to the Art and Science of Complex Sales, proudly presented by Membrane. This podcast is your gateway to mastering the craft of modern selling. If you're passionate about growth, impact, and unlocking full potential in sales and revenue, you're in the right place. So don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. And now let's get started with today's guest.
What's up, everybody? Today we're talking with Vince Beese about sales playbooks that work. Vince has spent his career building and scaling sales teams in some seriously high growth environments, all the way from the early .com startups to enterprise software companies. Along the way, he's developed a really cool and powerful framework for thinking about how deals get won. He's the author of the book, Red Zone Selling. And in this book, he breaks down complex sales using a sports analogy, and I love it. He's talking about how we move the ball down the field and how we call the right plays at the right time. So we're going to be talking about his journey from knocking on doors and making cold calls to leading high growth rate sales teams to building red zone selling and helping sellers improve close rates and building momentum in the deals. So if you're in B2B sales, if you're in sales leadership, just fascinated by the craft, tune in and let's get started with Vince Beese. Vince Beese, welcome to the show, man. How you doing?
I am doing fantastic, Paul. How are you doing today?
It's amazing. I'm always having fun when I'm podcasting and learning something. I think it's one of the greatest mechanisms to meet interesting people and learn some new stuff. So I'm jazzed, man. I am jazzed. Hey, what part of the world are you in? I should have asked you that before we started, but
I am the part of the world that is warmer than most places in the U.S. I actually live in a place called Cary, North Carolina, which is just outside the capital of Raleigh, and it is a booming, growing area. But I'm a transplant from New Jersey, longtime New Jersey resident, and grew up there primarily. So,
what on earth could have taken you out of that bleary February New Jersey weather and into North Carolina?
You know what they say? They say you can take the boy out of Jersey, but you can't take the Jersey out of the boy. So, I mean, I think like most people, weather, number one consideration, right? I didn't want to have winter anymore. I'd like to have a lower tax base too. That'd be nice as well. And so we primarily grew our family down here. The girls went to high school and college down here, so it's been a nice transition, honestly. That
is wonderful. I love Cary. I've been there a number of times. And it's a great spot. That the Research Triangle. My nephew went to NC State.
Okay.
And then so I got to spend a fair bit of time there, and I used to travel down that way for some partnerships quite a bit. But all right, so you have a long and storied career in the world of sales, and you've come out with some writing and to back that up and share that with others. But why don't we start with a general question? Like, tell me about you in sales. Where'd you get started?
Yeah, it's a great question. And you're right. I get bored easily, so I have to do lots of different things. My first sales job, I didn't want to be in sales. Let's be clear. I didn't go to college to be in sales. I went to college to try to be a broadcaster. I wanted specifically to be a sports broadcaster. Didn't turn out. The most success I had in broadcasting was I had a stint as a radio disc jockey at a rock station. Pretty cool job, not a lot of pay, but it actually gave me the framework for being able to sell or speak in front of people. So it was a good skill set. And then, like most people, I found a job selling from an ad. At the time, it was for selling print advertising in a brand new magazine in Washington, D.C. And you got basically, here's a list, pick up that phone over there and start calling them to see if they're interested in buying advertising from it. There wasn't any training. There wasn't any manual. It was just, here's a cup of coffee. Here's a list. Here's a phone.
Yeah.
Go at it.
Yeah.
And so I was like, wow, I can get paid money. Plus, if I get some of these people to agree to put an ad in this, I'll get actually commission. This is pretty cool. It's not sports broadcasting, but it's a living, right?
Yeah. Did you make a game out of it? Like, like when you were picking up the phone and being essentially that cold calling a bunch of people? If you want to be a sports broadcaster, you obviously have some competitive drive there and love some sports. So did it become like a game to you early on?
I'll be honest with you. I really didn't care about the job because I still had ambitions to be in sports broadcasting or broadcasting. And so because I had no fear, because I didn't care if I won or lost, because it was a temporary thing. I wasn't going to do this for the rest of my life. This is just something
Yeah.
I'm doing right now to pay some bills. And by the way, more of my job was going door to door than it was picking up the phone. And so if
Really?
you've never
Okay.
experienced walking into a small store, asking for the owner and having to present in real time and ask questions in real time is quite the challenge. So I do respect the people that go to house and sell your bug services and lawn services and all that. I don't want them to come to my house, but I respect the guts and the appreciation for trying not to get that door slammed in your face, right?
Amen. Amen. I walked the streets of Tucson, Arizona for a summer, selling in the heat, selling printing. So my dad had a print shop back in Ohio, and in the same, essentially in the same franchise, there was a couple of shops out in Tucson, and one of them hired me to be their salesperson, thinking that, because my dad owned a shop, I'd be good at it. I was horrible. And it was so hot. And the best, my best essentially one-liners to get in the door when I started talking to people was just because I was pouring out sweat, was to ask for a cup of water. Like, I was just dying. So the ladies at the front would always have pity on me. I'd be able to strike up a conversation. And I sold some business cards. I do too. Respect the heck out of it.
Doorsteps probably might help, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, so you went from that. So you're out there, and how did it become a career? Like, how did it become something that you're passionate about and a career?
Well, I was working at AT&T, more of a business development type of role. And I managed a bunch of, I signed some business and BD deals and then managed the relationships. One of which was a small company in Manhattan. This is the start of like the .com era that actually was in the ad serving space. And the president of that company, after they went public, he left and he went to this small little startup called Live Person in Manhattan. And he said, "Hey, how would you like to come over here and run sales?" I'm like, "Run sales? Like, I'm a team of one. I just do business development here. Like, what do you mean?" He goes, "Look, dude, I know you. I trust you. We've worked together for whatever it was, 18 months or so. I know you can come over and I know you can go do a job." So I literally showed up in a loft in Manhattan with about 9 to 10 people, having absolutely no sales leadership experience at all, no formal training for sales at all, and had to then sell and build a team as fast as possible because we were just booming, right? So talk about sink or swim. Like, I got my lessons. I learned everything in real time on the job every single day.
Wow, that's awesome.
It was crazy. I mean, it was literally nuts, right?
So you're in a flat and like you bring in like different phone lines, or just calling like crazy. Are you walking the streets of Manhattan?
No, this is all mostly we were doing. They were more pretty transactional sales. It was a seat license model, right? So we were selling basically. Live Person was the first live chat vehicle for sales and customer support. So we were selling that as a seat license. So most of our stuff was phone, right? Picking up phone and inbound phone calls. And by the way, taking orders via fax machines. This is still 1999, heading into 2000. So we're still using the fax machine to take them in. We're out in an open area. So picture an open area, a lot of noise, people talking, and then the fax machine going. And by then I had a rooster. Every time we closed a deal, I had this rooster, and you pressed it and went. It was so loud, Paul, and it was great because every time a salesperson was on a call, the prospect said, "What is that?" He goes, "It's another sale." So it became this thing, and in 14 months, Paul, we went from basically no revenue to a publicly traded company.
So you were screaming. Wow, that is drinking through a fire hose.
Well, and if you remember now, we're talking about April of 2000. So January of 2000, all the .coms started blowing up. So at that point, we either go public or we're probably going out of business because we're not getting any more funding like everybody else. So we went public and fortunately got out and, got on the public markets.
Wow. That's fantastic. That's a great
So here's
story,
dumb
man.
me.
That
I'm
is a
thinking
great
like this
story.
happens all the time. Like you just join one of these startups and in 14 months, whatever it is, you go public or you get bought, right? That's
Yeah.
so, but I got the difference between I was at AT&T at the time, the biggest corporation in America, to a 10-person-ish startup in Manhattan. And I got the difference. And I was like, that's it. I'm never going back to corporate America. And I haven't ever gone back to corporate America unless it was through an acquisition after the fact.
That's great. So where do you go from there? So you have this 14-month rush, like that is just all out to the wall, go public. Where do you go from there? Like, what's the next step?
Where we go from there, we're still growing like crazy. I think we moved in a year 4 times because the office building we were in was just too small. So we kept upgrading. It was crazy. Like every 3 months, we're moving to a new office. And then guess what happens in about 2001? Oh man, .coms just. So now we're doing those famous things where if you're in this room, you're let go, and if you're this room, you're staying. So we did that downsizing move where we probably cut half the company. So I got some experience in what it's like to go through transformation of this booming rise to then this chaotic downside. And so it was, it was like a little over 2 years of just sheer crazy madness, highs, lows, you know what I mean? Experienced it all. And so then I transitioned from a CRM live customer space to email marketing space.
Okay. All right. And another startup or another?
Actually, the company was a publicly traded company in the space. So I went from, but it was still, they're publicly traded, but you're still talking about a company that's around 20 million, 25 million, so it's not a big company. At that point, remember,
micro stock type
90s,
things.
Early
Yeah.
2000, you could go public relatively easy, right?
Yeah.
It didn't take a lot of effort. But I quickly transitioned from that company to my next really good startup, which was Cheetah Mail. Another company, about less than $1 million. Great technology selling to a phenomenal industry, which we focused mostly on big box retail and e-commerce. So Cheetah Mail was an email marketing service provider, which means we managed the list, put together the email campaigns, and blasted them out, right? So at that time, and think about the early 2000s, like to get to consumers, it was email digitally, right?
Yep.
So, man, we grew like a rocket ship. In my first 5 years, we went from basically $1 million to $150 million, high net margins, big enterprise deals. So we were going after the big of the big, first in retail, then we verticalized financial services, media, and so on and so forth. So then we just scaled by verticalization. And we were eventually acquired by Experian, and we became part of Experian's marketing services division. So it's a really good marriage.
So you go from there. So first couple, and then there's a couple more after that, and then you make a leap to taking everything that you've learned, and that's an assumption when I say everything, but taking what you've learned and putting it into a book and then your own consulting practice. So where are you focused? Where are you focused now?
Yeah, it's a great question. Let's fast forward. So I continue to go into an early stage, either starting from scratch or taking something over and rebuilding it. Love that whole process. Fast forward to a company called Customer that I joined during COVID. And we were fortunate to, within my first 2 years there, were acquired by Meta. Stayed on for another year. And then after I left that, I vowed I don't want another W-2. So what do I do? So I'm trying to figure out what is it that I do. And I had a couple business ventures I tried to start. And then last year, I had this idea for red zone selling. And I went about writing the book. And it was launched August of last year. And then turned that into my business, really, of coaching, workshops, speaking engagements. It's a whole system, right? So we can get into that, but that's my primary focus. That's what I'm focused on, building that brand and the red zone selling system.
So who's your ideal client there? Like, do you have a specific lane that you focus on, or are you coaching, big companies, small companies?
The number one persona is sales leadership.
Okay.
Right.
Yep.
I position myself, Paul, as a sales strength coach, right? So think
Mhm.
about and we'll get into what red zone means, but think about a football team or other athletic teams is like they've got position coaches and then they have this concept of a fitness or strength coach. Why is that so important to those teams? Well, you want to make your athletes stronger, faster, and less susceptible to injuries. And as a sales strength coach, it's the same thing. You've got, of course, levels of leadership and frontline managers, but tell me what percentage of those people really focus on coaching? It's 5, maybe 10% of their time is focused on coaching. And having someone like myself come in to complement that, right? And to rise and build the sales muscle for everybody, not just top performers. What about the players that are, for lack of a better word, C players or B players and make them better, right? And that's where I can come in with different um, models, right? Whether it be a workshop or straight up coaching or one-on-one training. That's where I help these organizations.
Well, this concept of red zone selling, and I haven't read the book, I want to, but I did attend a presentation on it. I just wanted to get familiar with it
Yeah.
and all that, and I loved it. So, but it seems like it's a combination almost between kind of a systematic framework and process for sales, but also a methodology by which to interact with people. Do you just mind going through Red Zone and how you develop that specifically?
Yeah, I'll give you the couple of minutes, seconds on how it came about. So 9 years ago, I was going to speak at a sales conference, and I was trying to come up with on a Sunday. I was trying to come up with what am I going to talk about? What's interesting to this audience? And while I was sitting there with my laptop, I was watching NFL football. And I'm watching this quarterback move the ball methodically down the field to set themselves up in the red zone to have a higher probability to score a touchdown. And on that specific drive, they did score. And I'm like, man, the way that they called the plays and the way that they ran the plays and the way that they executed is just like enterprise sales. So literally from that moment, I started building out what this red zone framework was. And I very simply broke down a football field into 3 zones: yellow, green, and red. And each zone in sales, those yellow, green, and red zone, serve a purpose, right? Yellow, to simplify it, is qualification. Is there a fit?
Mm-hmm.
Should I advance this or not? Green is, how do I continue to build momentum? And red is, how do I focus on and execute and make sure I close this? And now a lot more detail to that, but it's that simplistic, right? Instead of looking at your deals by stages, look at your deals where they sit. Where are you in the green zone? Are you in the red zone? Are you in the yellow zone? Okay, if you're in the yellow zone, here's the situations that you're probably going through, and here's some plays that you can run to rectify those systems. So it's what I think people appreciate about what I've created, and I like to call it a system and not a methodology, because it really isn't a methodology. It's a closing system. It's meant for the seller to be able to close at a higher rate, provide them the execution and the plays, right, to win more often. And that's who the book was mostly written for. But obviously, it's a very good blueprint for sales leaders as well, because you'd want to put that into place.
Well, I love how you describe that. I know I have another good friend. His name's James Royce. He told me his philosophy on sales is it's sales is not gambling, but sales is a game of chance or a game of percentages, right? Which is, and so your goal is to increase percentages and to execute at each spot in the way in a way that gives you a higher likelihood of winning. And that's one of the things that really drew me in when we were having that discussion is that's how you discussed it. And you talked about being able to run plays at each section. And I also love that analogy, right? You got to get tickled about that with your sports announcer background.
It's I don't know, man. I think the art of sales, like situational awareness, knowing where you are and what's going on, is so important and critical in sales these days. And again, think about it. A quarterback draws the team into a huddle, calls the play. Then he gets to the line of scrimmage and he sees a defense that he didn't expect. And guess what he has to do? He's got to change the play or he's not going to move the ball at all. So he changes the play, audibles, and then sets himself up for, to your point, a higher percentage play. And, in the book, I described the biggest mistake of all time, in my opinion, in football was when Seattle played New England the first go around in 2015. And at the end of the game, all they had to do is hand the ball all off to beast mode for the winning touchdown. Instead, they got cute and threw a slant pass and got picked off. So situational awareness in sales would have been, you're right on the 1 yard line. Don't get cute. Call the play that you're supposed to execute right now, right? That's all you need to do. And I think a lot of sellers are so programmatized now, like you're in this stage and you have to do these things. It's like, okay, but are you reading your deals? Are you reading how your contacts are reacting to you and responding to you? You know, again, there's some science to it, but there's also some art to it that you have to be a little bit more creative in that. And that's what this book really gives you is all these plays might be not be relevant specifically for the deals you're working on today, but hopefully it sparks you to think about what you could be doing and how you could be changing the game, right?
Have you watched Quarterback on Netflix by any chance? That show,
Is that
it's got like Kirk Cousins and
quarterbacks.
They follow like there's one season where they followed Jared Goff and Kirk Cousins, and I haven't watched a ton of it. My son got really into it, but one of the things that you said there around situational awareness just brought me to that show, because it shows Kirk Cousins doing all sorts of training and mental training and physical to understand the situation. Like that's how he went about things. Like he's like, okay, it's how do I read this and then change my behavior to react appropriately? And he had to do it in a really short time period. And that is one of the things that I think in a lot of standardized processes or methodologies that gets missed, right? Is that being able to situationally read where we are on the field among a number of factors, and then be able to pull out the playbook and say, oh, I got these 7 plays. Which one do I run? Right. So I liken it to it's almost like a self-changing sales process or a variable sales process, which is some of the stuff that we do. But like, how do you start to coach people on that? Like, do you outline in the book a variety of different plays that you can run per zone and how to recognize them, or how do you work on that?
Yeah, there are 64 plays in the book. And depending on where you are, again, in the book, we break down each of the zones, the yellow, the green, and the red zone. We also have other cool chapters like when it's time to call Hail Mary. You need to have that. And it does explain when you should be calling this play and why you should be calling this play and the drills you could be doing to practice. Because the only purpose for a playbook is not to always have it by your side and flip it open. You want to eventually become an instinctual seller. Like, yes, you know what plays to run. Just like a quarterback, the reason someone calls the play from the sideline to the quarterback, but they have the ability to change the play. They can't look on a playbook. Now they have it on their wrist. They have the play number to be able to shout out, but they know the play and the reason why they're going to call play. So in the book, we explain the play, why the play now, and how to run the play, just like you would diagram in football, but for sales. So understanding why it's so important. And like, it's funny, when I went through this whole practice of writing Red Zone and now doing workshops and speaking, it always comes back to the basics, Paul. I mean, it always comes back to the basics. People love when I start teaching the mutual action plan. And what's so important? Well, it's a mutual action plan. Yeah, you put this together and you give it back. Yeah. It's not that simple, though. It's not, I just put together a document, I give it to them. There's collaboration. There's asking for permission, right? There's making sure you're holding them accountable and you're holding yourself accountable. There's making sure you assign who owns things. It's such a powerful thing. Not the words on the piece of paper or whatever you've created, but that ability that I'm partnering with you on this project. I'm partnering with you to help this get through it. And there's no promise that you're going to choose us. But what I'm trying to do with you is create this partnership where you view me now as a strategic advisor, trusted advisor, or whatever you want to call it, as opposed to another salesperson. So what all sellers need to know out there is that you need to differentiate yourself. And the best way to differentiate yourself is to provide value. And a mutual action plan is a fine example of that. The other one is people call it an ROI. I like to say a business value case. Why is it that they should move forward with you? What is the benefit they're going to receive? And how is that going to happen? Right?
Well, I like the way you frame it too, because you're not always creating those things, right? But you need to understand what are the, like, back to Kirk Cousins, like, I'm looking over the field, I'm looking over the line. Okay, the DB's up, or the whatever it is.
Yep.
Okay, now is the time when, if I call this play, I will have a enhanced chance of winning. I love the analogy. I love how you talk about it and think about it.
And it's funny, like I got forewarned writing the book, oh, the title and then football, you're going to turn off certain audience about this. I've got people that bought the book in Japan, Australia, certainly throughout Europe, and both males and females have bought the book. It's not like I'm diagnosing NFL plays in this stupid thing. I'm just using sports as an analogy. And everybody understands that. Come on. Most salespeople are competitive, whether you played competitive sports or not. You're typically a competitive minded person, right?
Yeah. I did do a show at one point. I think it was Fred Kopsik, but we were talking about, like, the differences in how we see and view, or was it Des? Anyhow, we were talking about the differences in how sometimes we see analogize sales in the UK and the US by the dominant sport. And it was really fascinating because they were more fluid in the way he talked about sales was essentially more fluid and soccer.
Look, man, I could talk about Premier League. I could turn Red Zone into the Premier League, because think of it, there's so many set plays in professional, what we call soccer, right? That it's very relevant, right?
I love it.
Sports, the soccer analogy one.
Yeah, or the football. I mean, I would get shot if I went over the UK and called it soccer. But
yeah.
All right. So what do you do? How are you going to market then with this? Are you a coach, mentor, advisor, all of the above? And who should be reaching out to you if they're interested?
Yeah, it's a great question. As you know, you always have to tinker with your messaging and value proposition. And so where I've landed and what seems to be resonating, as I said at the top, is sales strength coach. And that can take a bunch of different flavors. Mm-hmm. For example, there's a small sales organization I'm working with right now as their, lack of a better word, interim sales coach. So I'm literally meeting with them on a weekly basis, making sure they're doing all the right things to continue to grow the business. I just got back from Boston, did a workshop at a SKO yesterday. So workshops is another big thing. And then I'm under retainer with a couple of organizations as their sales strength coach, like literally working with the team on certain areas. And we'll get very specific on that. Some of it could be deal reviews and deal breakdowns and things of that nature. And then GTM consulting in general for early stage startups, right? So what's good and bad about what I do is, like, I do so many things, it's hard to kind of pinpoint it, but it's all things sales related, right? It's like sales is the engine to most companies, right? If you don't have that system in place or understand what's not working and be able to identify that and fix that, that's a big problem to scale, right?
Do you run pipelines, and do you run pipeline reviews by green or yellow, green, red?
Yeah, I do.
Is that okay?
Yeah. It's a lot easier to do. And I literally created a document on how to run an efficient pipeline review, because I find a lot of people talk about what stage are you in and where you have your forecast. They don't ask the real questions about movement. What's happening? If you have your pipeline call every Wednesday and you come to next Wednesday's pipeline call and there hasn't been any movement with your deal, why are we even talking about it then? Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, company ABC, and they're still at stage 4, and I'm still waiting on the next step. Well, guess what? You've got a problem. You don't have a next step.
Momentum. You talked momentum a big way, and you talked a big way in that.
The biggest killer. I find most deals die in the green zone when most deals should die in the yellow zone. So people ask me all the time, well, like, why would a deal ever die in the green and red zone? It's because you didn't do the right things in the yellow zone. That's why.
So let's add another layer to this too, because I don't want to miss this, because this is one of the most important parts of what you are saying and doing, which is each of these playbooks in each area is designed to build and maintain momentum, or to disqualify quickly. Is that an accurate statement?
It is absolutely the best way to increase your chances and probability of closing deals is to either kill or keep deals that aren't ready, aren't mature from going into the green zone. That's the best way. So if I've created this one play, it's called the 4F deal fit. Fit, it's about basically making sure you have extreme fit and there's urgency tied to that. Mm-hmm. So then people often say, well, Vince, well, how do I create urgency? I go, you don't create urgency. Urgency is created by the client. You just have to recognize what's the urgency. That's your job, is to uncover what urgency is. And there's 3 ways to find urgency. Urgency is either tied to the value of the solution that you're providing. We value this. We need this, right? It's based on an ROI. Oh, I'm going to make more money by moving forward. Or it's based on a time commitment. I need to get this thing implemented by end of year and get off that platform to your platform. You anchor to one of those 3 different value propositions. Now you're creating urgency because the client said, I need to get this done because of one of these 3 things based on this date. So it's no longer a salesperson making up a date because they need to close a deal. It's based on it. And it goes back to the question you had about pipeline review. So when I say, I don't ask you when your close date is, I ask you, what are you anchoring to? Because asking a close date is just an artificial made up number, but asking what you're anchoring to is based on the prospect and what they need and when they need it. And guess what? If you don't have that, you're still in the yellow zone, my friend. Stop moving into the green zone. So you see how simplistic eventually obviously I'm very fluid and I can speak very fast because 1, I'm from New Jersey, but 2, I know this thing. But by using the color coding and what you're supposed to do, the purpose of the different zones, it simplifies it for the sales leader running the pipeline review and forecasting, by the way, and the salesperson, right? So you don't need to get into the minutia detail in a pipeline review. You just need to understand where you are and what is the next play you're running, and is it on the calendar or not, right?
Do you have stats like touchdown scored? You should literally have like a stat like leading quarterback with touchdown. You do? That's all. Okay, sorry.
Well, guess what % of touchdowns in the NFL are scored in the red zone? What % of all touchdowns, what % are scored in the red zone?
It's got to be pretty high. It's got to be in the 80s.
74-ish% of touchdowns over the last 12 years have been scored in the red zone. So talk about the importance as an offense to get into the red zone. And it's the same thing in sales. Think about how important it is to do the right things in sales to get to the red zone, right? You ain't scoring from the green zone. We don't have punting and field goals in sales. Sales is a zero-sum game. So it's either I win it or I lose it. And the last thing I'll say is I hear a lot, Paul, from sales leaders like, Vince, I hear what you're doing. I need more pipeline. I said, really? What's your close rate? Oh, it's 21%. But closing's not our problem. I go, yeah, yes, 21% sucks. So closing is your problem. You don't need more opportunities. You need more of the right opportunities, or you need to execute better. One of those 2 things.
That's awesome stuff, man. Well, I will, let's end on that. How do people find you? Vince Beese, and I'm going to say it's Beese, but it's spelled like Beese. So Beese. How do they find you out there?
I think LinkedIn is the easiest. The good thing about having the name Vince Beese is I don't think there's another Vince Beese on LinkedIn. So that's pretty cool. I also have a website, vincebeese.com. So those are 2 great ways. And I do love to have conversations. And if this is interesting to folks, I'd love to have a dialogue, right?
Awesome. And the book everywhere, like Amazon?
Sorry, yeah, it's just on Amazon. And comes in an ebook format or paperback and audio.
Fantastic. Well, hey, thanks so much for your mission and your work on elevating the sales profession. That's why we exist, and love getting your voice out there. So I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Paul. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Hey, everybody, you know what to do. Make sure you're liking, subscribing, connecting with Vince, commenting, all of those things so other people can get out there and enjoy the sales profession and elevate their game as well. And as always, have an amazing day and keep shining bright. Talk to you soon.